Now, I've seen the Rambo movies enough times to know that if a military veteran the size of an NFL linebacker wanders into town, it's probably within your best interest to not make his life any harder than it needs to be. But these policemen just cannot help themselves. It's time to talk about Rebel Ridge. What's up, guys? I'm Sully, and today I'm very excited because we're talking about the newest small-town action thriller on Netflix, Rebel Ridge. All you need to know about this one is that the story goes like this. A former Marine confronts corruption in a small town when local law enforcement unjustly seizes the bag of cash he needs to post his cousin's bail. Now, this is a movie that I have been waiting for ever since it was first announced because I truly believe that Jeremy Saulnier is one of the best directors working today when it comes to establishing a slow burn and then carefully ratcheting up the intensity as the story moves along. I actually enjoy all of his films, but Green Room is on a whole nother level for me when it comes to a movie that'll have you stressed the hell out from the second it starts all the way until the credits roll. It'll give you a few gray hairs, let me tell you. But knowing that he's capable of crafting that kind of experience had me excited to see what he was going to do with this more traditional and by-the-numbers action thriller premise. And after seeing the film for myself, I'm happy to say that for the most part, Rebel Ridge ends up being a smart, macho, and entertaining entry in the genre. We gotta start by talking about the performances here because those are the bread and butter of this movie, and I'll be the first one to admit that I wasn't really all that familiar with Pierre's game, other than from M. Night Shyamalan's Old, where he plays a character with quite possibly the worst name in the history of movie making as a rapper called Mid-Sized Sedan, but we don't talk about that, because he comes in here and absolutely makes a meal out of this role. It's not always the easiest or most believable when a character requires you to be built like a brick shithouse, but also come off as the smartest guy in the room, and he somehow manages that juggling act like nobody's business. Don Johnson plays the main antagonist of the film, and he's the guy that our central character is forced to go toe-to-toe with, and he does a really good job portraying the type of dude that's been calling the shots in this small town for decades now, and isn't about to let anyone that just rolls through change all that. The pissing contest that constantly ensues whenever these two guys are on screen together is super entertaining to watch the entire way through, and because they hate each other so much, you'll be on the edge of your seat waiting to see what steps they both take to keep getting the upper hand. There are other actors in here that you'll recognize who all do a solid job, but the clear standouts are these two warring gentlemen, and rightfully so. Now, one of the reasons you turn on a movie like this in the first place is for the action, and this isn't like a John Wick or a Die Hard situation where it's non-stop, complete balls to the wall, gunfire, and explosions the entire runtime of the movie. It actually takes a much more nuanced approach and only shows us the shit hitting the fan when absolutely necessary. And I thought that ended up making those scenes much more memorable and satisfying. Now, I'm not saying that I wouldn't have liked to have seen even more beatdowns and shootouts, but the action sequences that they do give us here are well constructed, realistic enough, and very entertaining. They get more and more bombastic and excessive as the movie goes on, which actually mirrors the chain of events in the plot nicely, as we see our main characters slowly utilizing more force and expertise to make these guys standing in his path realize that he ain't fooling around. When it comes to the actual story itself, though, I think that's kind of where I start to have some problems with this film, unfortunately. The first hour and the last 30 minutes pretty much gave me everything I wanted out of it, but this one gets a little too bogged down in the details of its own narrative in the middle of the film. I think it's pretty obvious with a movie like this that we want to see this guy that was wronged get his revenge and crack some skulls together along the way while he does it, but the story seems a lot more interested in finding a path to tie this central event into a much larger, winding political conspiracy, and I just don't think that was the best decision here or what anyone was signing up for. It overcomplicates things and takes away from the effectiveness of that first hour of the film, which does a really good job positioning Rebel Ridge as the modern-day First Blood and our main character playing a new-aged version of Rambo. What's frustrating is that if you cut out 20 or 30 minutes in the middle of this film and replaced it with an additional encounter between our main character and this local police force, this would be one hell of a lean and mean action thriller. Would it be a lot simpler that way? I mean, sure, but would it also be a lot more consistent and efficient as well? You bet your ass it would. Overall, guys, Rebel Ridge is a slick, entertaining, and well-acted action thriller. There's good cinematography, performances, fight sequences, definitely a lot to love here. But it does really shoot itself in the foot a little bit in the second act by focusing on story beats that slow down the pace and detract the intensity from the main conflict that has our interest in the first place. Narrative missteps aside though, if you're a big fan of these one-man army kind of movies, then you'll definitely have a fun time with this film and be looking to join the Aaron Pierre fan club. Rebel Ridge gets a Sully score of 3.5 stars. So that's my review for the latest Netflix action thriller. What do you think are some of the most underrated action thrillers in the genre? I'm always trying to add more to my watch list, so let me know in the comments below what you think. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys at the next one.